the 6,500-acre UC Merced Vernal Pools and Grassland Reserve, or MVPGR, is located directly adjacent to UC Merced. Due to its close proximity to campus, the reserve provides UC Merced with opportunities to lead in diverse, inclusive, innovative research and education. The MVPGR was founded in 2013 and became a part of the UC Natural Reserve System in 2014, where it is the 39th reserve in the UC Natural Reserve System, whose mission is to contribute to the understanding and wise stewardship of the Earth and its natural systems by supporting university-level teaching, research, and public service. One of our 4 reserves in the UC Merced NRS, the reserve is a part of a growing network that provides rich opportunities for connecting communities in the Valley, foothills, and Sierra Nevada.
Hi there, I'm Joy Bechet and I'm the director of the Merced Vernal Pool and Grassland Reserve. My role as part of the Natural Reserve System, or NRS, is to facilitate research, education, and public service on the reserve, which is the mission of the NRS. And given our unique ecosystem and the fact that we preserve some of the largest remaining intact vernal pool landscapes anywhere, we attract researchers from across the UC system who come here to research vernal pool and grassland ecology, biodiversity, and more. Compared with other UC natural reserves who are more established, we receive fairly comparable use, which is impressive given that our reserve is fairly new to the natural reserve system. We provide a wide variety of educational opportunities as well, including university-level field course trips, K-12 trips, public education naturalist trainings, and also public service events. The reserve is generally closed to the public, with the exception of researchers, administrators, and public stewards. However, we do provide visitation via educational trips and other special events. Here we are at a vernal pool on the reserve, which can be recognized in the dry phase as a depressional area, often with cobbles and dried plants that are unique to this wetland feature, such as this easy to identify and very prickly coyote thistle. Vernal pools refer to seasonally wet areas or wetlands that fill with water during the winter months. They're often underlain by a clay hardpan, which is formed through sedimentation over millions of years, resulting in an impermeable layer where water cannot percolate down, resulting in the pooling or filling of these depressions in the winter months. And the term vernal refers to spring, in that vernal pools are a springtime occurrence with showy flowering blooms.
This part of the tour will discuss the plant and animal biodiversity of the MVPGR's unique vernal pool and grassland ecosystems, which are visited, investigated, and studied by university-level and K-12 educational groups, as well as researchers from UC Merced and several other campuses. Located on 6,500 acres of conservation easement lands, that are required to be protected in perpetuity from damage and development, the reserve is home to some of the most intact threatened vernal pool wetland habitat in California and in the world, and is considered a hotspot for biodiversity. The intact vernal pool and grassland ecosystems within the reserve are home to hundreds of native plants and animals that are adapted to the dry, treeless landscape and provide critical habitat for many species. Examples of unique species diversity on the reserve include many of the flora and fauna that are endemic to vernal pools, meaning that they occur only in and around vernal pools and nowhere else in the world. Recall the various phases of a vernal pool. During the dry season, the endangered fairy shrimp and rare wildflowers persist as eggs or seeds. During the wet season, eggs hatch and seeds germinate. The pools flourish with life. A few of these species, including the fairy shrimp, California tiger salamander, and succulent owl's clover, are endangered and occur almost nowhere else in the world. The vernal pools typically undergo 4 distinct phases each year: wetting, aquatic, drying, and drought. A typical vernal pool can be characterized by standing water in winter, colorful plants and flowers in spring, and dry conditions through summer. This particular vernal pool is still in the drought phase, awaiting the much-needed wetting and aquatic phases by the rain. Vernal pool ecosystems that occur on the reserve include vernal pools, swales, and clay playas, each of which has its own distinctive characteristics and supports a particular group of plants and animals, where each pool hosts a variety of resident and migratory species. Most of these species are adapted to survive in the extreme and variable environmental conditions of the vernal pools. Many species that are adapted to this annual cycle of wet and dry periods are found only in vernal pools and are therefore sensitive to the destruction of these unique ecosystems. Vernal pool ecosystems once were widely distributed throughout California's Central Valley. However, habitat conservation for the agriculture and urban development is responsible for the destruction of an estimated 99% of the historical extent of these habitats.
So now I'd like to share with you some of the research and monitoring that we have happening on the reserve. We have a lot of really exciting research that happens out here on the reserve, and it falls into 3 main categories. There's drone technology and remote sensing technology, as well as various fields of ecology, evolution, and conservation, including things like plant, soil, and microbial ecology, as well as genetics, and also hydrological research and ecological restoration studies. Now let's hear from some of the researchers who have some really cool, exciting, ongoing research happening on the reserve.
And my research can be distilled down into 2 major components. One is I use a combination of genetic and traditional vegetation survey approaches. So the genetics part being eDNA and vernal DNA metabarcoding, and trying to use those to understand broad-scale patterns of biodiversity, how biodiversity might be structured across the vernal pool landscape. And the second part of my research, I use experiments to try to understand plant adaptation across complex environmental gradients, such as vernal pools. All this work has implications for conservation across vernal pool landscapes in the Central Valley.
My name is Jorge Montiel. I'm a grad student at the Environmental System program. I do research on vernal pools. I'm from Mexico City, but I came here to understand how these vernal pools allocate different life forms. I believe that the vernal pools are really important because we can find some mysteries that can help us to understand the life equilibrium and ecological equilibrium. This microecology tries to explain the distribution of different life forms What I specifically focus on is microbial communities. Microbial communities living inside the water of the vernal pools, living on the soil, and living inside the plants. What we have discovered in the vernal pools is that these microbes have higher diversity towards the poles, and this diversity is decreased as we go south in direction to the equator.
The UC Merced Vernal Pools and Grassland Reserve protects in perpetuity very important ecosystems and habitat for plants and animals in the state of California. The reserve connects people to this special land by providing a natural environment right next to campus to conduct research, education, and public service events, which is the mission of the Natural Reserve System. Because the reserve is located on conservation easement lands that require protection in perpetuity, management of the reserve requires maintaining a unique balance between facilitating research, education, and public service, while also ensuring protection of the sensitive ecosystems and species in the reserve. By maintaining this balance, we can use the reserve to its fullest potential to learn about, investigate, and ask research questions about our local ecology that have a relevance at the regional, national, and global scales. At the nearby Sycon Field Station, located in the foothill town of Springville, in Tulare Country, vernal pool habitat also abounds, which provides students, educators, and researchers with opportunities to explore these unique ecosystems as well. The area also boasts beautiful oak woodland savanna habitats, characteristic of the Sierra Nevada foothills. The Sycon Field Station is UC Merced's newest reserve and is a 2.5-hour drive southeast of Merced. The station was established as a partnership with the Tulare Country Office of Education, which operates the nearby Sycon Outdoor School of Science and Conservation, serving 20,000 local and regional K-12 students through outdoor science education experiences. The field station itself provides students, educators, and researchers with opportunities to explore and investigate the area's unique ecosystem and biodiversity, while utilizing the field station's multiple facilities, which include a newly renovated classroom and laboratory space, restroom and shower facilities, upstairs apartment with overnight accommodations, as well as access to Sycon's campus and conference facilities. Through partnership and collaboration with Sycon, Yosemite, and Sequoia Field Stations located at Yosemite and Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park, the UC Merced Natural Reserve System hopes to continue growing our network to provide richer, more expansive opportunities to connect local communities in the Valley, foothills, and Sierra Nevada regions. To learn more about UC Merced Natural Reserve System locations, visit our website at nrs.ucmerced.edu.